I'd like to call to order the Transportation Committee meeting for Thursday, March 6th at 10:01 a.m. Sorry about that. We'll begin by saying the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to ask Marjorie Rollins to lead us in the pledge. Thank you, Marjorie. And Bruce isn't here, but I just wanted to give him gratitude for being chair of the last meeting when I was absent. All right. We have a roll call.
Thank you. Good morning. Director Boomgarden,
Here.
Rollins for Branscombe, Chapman,
Here.
Clarici absent, Early,
Here.
Talamantes for Jennings, Jones,
Here.
Sander absent, Vice Chair Desmond, Vice Chair Howdeschelt absent, Chair Lauren, and ex officio member Aceves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to open the public comment period for items that aren't on the agenda today. And if there's any comments on the consent calendar, I'd like them to also be addressed at this time. Do we have any public comment in the room?
There's no public comment.
Do we have any public comment online?
No online comment.
All right. We're going to adjourn our SACOG meeting and open up our Capital Valley Regional Service Authority meeting at this time. Let me grab that agenda.
And Chair Lauren, we
Yeah.
can note for the roll call that Director Rickman is absent.
Thank you. Director Richmond is absent. All right. For this meeting. All right. Do we have public comment for our CVR Safe meeting today? That's for items that aren't on the agenda.
There's no public comment.
All right. Well, I want to announce that Director Hudeshell is here. Yes. All right. Our first item today is the consent calendar for CVR credit. It's on the consent calendar, so I'm looking for a motion.
Early seconds.
All right. We have a motion and a second from Early. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Anybody abstain? I forget we have to ask that. All right. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Item number 2 is an information only item, and it's really great information, and I'm looking forward to the presentation by Chase McFadden. Welcome.
And I'm pulling up that presentation now. Okay, perfect. All right. Hello, CVR Safe / Transportation Committee. My name is Chase McFadden, and I am an associate analyst on the transportation team here at SACOG, and focused on all things ITS, including our 501 Traveler Information System program. And I'm here today to talk about that service and some contract considerations for our 511 program, which serves the region in accessing roadside motorist aid services. So I wanted to start off with a brief overview of the history of motorist aid by touching on a few significant milestones of this program, both nationally and regionally, recognizing that this is, there's a lot of significant progress that's not represented here, and a lot of work in between these dates. So going all the way back to the 80s, the original motorist aid statute was established that created the Service Authority for Freeway and Expressways. I will be just saying SAFEs from here on out. And that was intended to provide roadside motorist aid assistance. So it authorized the $1 vehicle registration fee to fund safe programs, and was primarily focused on call boxes, the installation, operation, and maintenance of them, as well as some of the associated lighting, but was very much based in the physical roadside call boxes. Fast forward 15 years, and the FCC assigned 511 as the nationwide telephone number for accessing motorist aid and traveler information systems. And this led to a significant increase in accessibility to traveler information, such as real-time traffic information, transit options, and other roadway conditions. Skipping forward another 14-ish years, a little more Sacramento specific. In the years that followed, Sacramento and really the CVR Safe Board here spent that time developing our regional 511 traveler information system program. And that began in all the way back in 2004-ish, a little before my time here, but as far as I can tell, 2004. And that's when the Sacramento Region 501 program was established. In the next couple of years, around 2007, there was significant work done in the development of a concept of operations and system requirements and other technical documents for establishing that regional ITS platform. And from 2009 to 2011, there was the creation of the Sacramento Transportation Area Network, or StarNet, as you may have seen it before, which is really the foundation for regional traffic management data for the region. And this is what, it is a little technical, but this is what enabled agencies to share and provide traffic data and video for both with each other and to the public. And the finally, the culmination of all these efforts was the public release of a phone IVR, so interactive voice response platform, i.e. calling into 511 and getting the same level of service as if you were calling in at a physical call box, as well as a web platform and smartphone applications. And this was kind of the public release for accessing traveler information. Fast forward just a couple. Oh, we're working. Okay, next slide, please. There we go. Thank you. So yeah, in just a couple more years, my assessment is that 2016 really solidified that mobile call box program as the primary way for accessing motorist aid, both nationally and locally. So this included both a regulatory amendment in 2016 that authorized safe funds to prioritize motorist aid and safety programs outside of the physical call boxes, the increasingly outdated physical call boxes. And again, this went to safety programs such as servicing freeway service patrol, changeable message signs, as well as traveler information systems, ITS, travel demand management programs like carpool incentives and transit support. So yeah, really ran the gamut. And if I'm not mistaken, this is when our regional 501 roadside assistance and mobile call box program became fully operational within the 6-county region. And finally, in the years that followed that, there's a real intensive review of the usage and functionality of the underlying 511 traffic data system, that is StarNet, as well as some efforts to consolidate various travel demand management programs and commuter services under that program umbrella. So looking a little more recently, last January, the SACOG board authorized a $2 million procurement for an updated traveler information system. And this was in recognition of the need for some modernization and right sizing of this program. And this was intended to integrate both the roadway data as well as trip planning and travel demand management services. A subsequent RFI was released that underscored some of the very real funding and development challenges in doing so, in fully integrating related but distinct traveler services through bespoke new software development. And so this led to a little bit of a strategy shift toward procuring separate contracts for traveler information systems and then separately travel demand management services. So you'll hear a little bit more about that in upcoming transportation committee item. But staff spent this time to secure a viable TDM or travel demand management for short replacement vendor, which launched in February 2025 as NorCal Go. This also required that our 501 traveler information system contract be renewed for an additional year to maintain the operation and maintenance of those services. And most recently, the CVR Safe Board discussed the need to remove the physical call boxes and put a plan into place for that. And as far as I can tell, this group was generally supportive of removing the physical call boxes in recognition that that a lot of that functionality lives within people's ability to just call 511 and get the same level of service. Which leads us to today with still a little bit of a need to streamline our 511 program to ensure that it's meeting our regional needs for both public users and our partner agencies. So what does that look like? So this is why I'm here today to discuss a proposed procurement plan for more IVR phone-based focused IVR our 501 service. So and that's really in recognition that our StarNet service, that data portal, is not being used to its full potential. And that our existing contract is set to expire yet again this upcoming October. But that there is still a very real need to ensure connectivity to our mobile call boxes services and ensure there's no lapse in coverage there, especially with the planned removal of those physical call boxes. And as I'll get into a little bit more detail and then we'll wrap up, a trimmed down 501 service could ultimately be really beneficial to our region. I skipped over a couple transitions here, so I'll leave that up for a minute before delving in. All right. So what does our regional 501 program look like going forward? So first and foremost, I think many would agree that we do need to maintain that access to motorist aid services as a real critical safety consideration. And again, that's the mobile call box functionality and being able to secure roadside assistance if you're ever in an emergency on a freeway or highway in the region. Also, by contracting directly with a IVR expert, platform expert, that gives us a little bit more flexibility of what services we want to include in that and push and give availability to. So this could potentially include some more generalized travel information, such as travel directions and transit info, if it's cost effective. It could also direct folks to NorCal Go if they're looking for a web-based platform for trip planning and travel options as an effort, that we've already gone through that has a lot of overlapping functionality. And finally, it gives us an opportunity to consider pursuing some strategic partnerships with more developed traveler information systems. So this, potentially MTC, who maintains a really robust traffic data system and has that level of budget and staff to maintain that. That's a model that a lot of folks in a lot of surrounding agencies in the LA region pursued to buy into LA Safe's 501 system at a fraction of the cost of maintaining it ourselves. So ultimately, the hope is that efforts to procure a streamlined 501 service would yield some cost savings while giving us a little bit more flexibility to shrink and grow the program as needed. So with that, I will open it up to discussion and questions.
Before we discuss, I just want to mention that this item has come to us before, so this might not be new information for many of us. And yeah, we're here to review and discuss going forward. Do any of the directors have comments? Director Early, or you want to wait till public comment? All right. Everybody else, you want to wait for public comment? All right. Is there any public comment on this item? I have not received any forms.
There's no public comment.
Okay. We're going to close public comment and call on Director Early.
Yeah, as Chair Lauren pointed out, that this is not something that is before our committee. However, some of our members are new, and I just wanted to lift up some of the previous comments we had gotten before, particularly from Supervisor Kennedy, I think, in regard to how important this program is. And he actually, I've heard him share a story before about stopping on the side of the road, car broken down, and how this program helped him personally. And so I just want to raise up that because that's what sticks out for me, how important it is. And then also we've heard from another, I want to say ex officio member that she will sometimes come. When last time we were in Marysville, I think she came. I don't remember the woman's name, unfortunately. James, are you going to help me out? I see you nodding.
Nancy Young,
Nancy Young.
former City of Tracy, member of this SAFE board.
Yeah, and I know this program was also really important to former Director Young. And she would come specifically for this program and champion it. And so I lift those things up because, again, Supervisor Kennedy, as well as Nancy, commented on this, what we're seeing as well, which is there's so much more potential for this. It's absolutely still needed. And so just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you very much, Director Early. Any other members want to make any comments? I would just like to comment that I live in Winters. It's a rural area. It's kind of an island where you have to take 2-lane roads to get anywhere. But traveling from there are many areas where there's no phone reception. And I have been in the position of having to report a fire and trying to call and not being able to use my phone and having to find a call box between Winters and Napa. So I know that it's still needed regionally, especially in rural areas. But I like that cities like Los Angeles have come up with great resolutions for those areas. Those are my comments. Anybody else? No. Do you feel like you've had enough comments?
Yeah, I believe so.
All right.
Looking for general support of our direction for this program here.
Madam Chair.
Director Hudishop.
Yeah, so process-wise, this is going to come to the board at what point in time? I mean, we've seen it a little bit at the board already. I think you're being responsive to the current concerns like the chair, so it's not going to be, all the call boxes are going to be gone, right? It's going to be a strategic insight. So what's the process from here forward?
Yeah, so to the best of my knowledge, there was a January 2024 item that effectively authorized us to go about procuring a updated platform and authorize our executive director to negotiate that and select our preferred vendor. So this is a follow through on that and ensuring that we're still going through that process. But I believe we have the needed authorization, and then, as soon as we go through that procurement process, we intend to keep you all apprised.
Yeah, maybe just to frame, right, under the umbrella of the CVR Safe, you pay for the 511 services that Chase has been talking about today. You're also referencing the call boxes, which are also part of that budget. So the call box removal action will come back to the board, I think, in May. And then this item here is, as Chase mentioned, for all the software and kind of back-end support. Some of it operates through the call boxes, some of it is separate online or by phone.
I really appreciate that thorough coverage, and to know that it's going to come back in May. It's really nice to know what items are coming back and when, so that we can all plan for them. And with that, I will close the CVR Safe meeting, and I will adjourn and open the SACOG meeting back again. All right. So back to SACOG. All right. We have a consent calendar before us for SACOG.
Move to approve the consent.
Second.
calendar.
All right, we have a motion and a second by the vice chairs, and all in favor?
Sorry, you want
Aye.
to just make sure we have public comment
Oh.
on consent.
Okay, I did ask for
Oh.
public comment on it when I asked for public comment, but I'd be
That's right.
happy to ask again. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar before we vote?
There's no public comment.
Right, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is he, yeah. I would like to recognize one of our directors that's on line.
Needs to be roll call.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
you
I'll
guys-
call roll for that, Chair
Okay.
Lawrence.
All right,
Director Clarici, hopefully you can hear me okay?
I can
Okay.
hear you just great. Thank you. Aye.
You're an aye. Thank you. I'll just go through the rest of the
Okay.
roll. Director Boomgarden,
Aye.
Rollins for Branscombe, Chapman,
Aye.
Clarici. Aye.
Aye.
Director Early,
Aye.
Talamontes for Jennings. Aye. Jones,
Aye.
Sander absent, Vice Chair Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Howdeshelt.
Aye.
And Chair Lauren.
aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, we're going to move on to the action portion of our agenda. And we're going to be introducing the 2025 Regional Active Transportation Program Funding Recommendation. I'm looking forward to it. It's presented by Summer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Once we get the presentation pulled up here. So I'm Summer Lopez. I'm the Program Manager over Active Modes here at SACOG. I'm a senior planner on our transportation team, and I do things like the Regional Active Transportation Program, the Regional Trail Network implementation, which you'll hear a little later today, and Active Transportation Technical Assistance. So again, I'm presenting item number 3. This is an action item on the Regional Active Transportation Program, funding recommendations, also known as the ATP. So as a reminder, the ATP is a statewide program. It's meant to increase walking, bicycling, and non-motorized rolling throughout the state. It's a 3-component funding program. So we have statewide, small, urban, and rural, and MPO. The first 2 are managed by the California Transportation Commission, and the MPO components are managed individually by each MPO throughout California. Our SACOG 6-county region program is managed in partnership with Placer County Transportation Planning Agency and El Dorado County Transportation Commission. This is our timeline. We're so close to the finish line for cycle 7, and it's been over a year in the making. So our statewide call for projects opened last March and closed in June. The regional program opened in June and closed in September, and the statewide awards were announced in November. So I'm going to talk about the budget in just a second, but I wanted to share that the state received 277 applications, totaling $2.5 billion in ATP requests. They ultimately funded 13 projects in the total of $101.2 million. And then I also wanted to share that even though we did have applications throughout the region competing in the statewide program, none were unfortunately funded this round. The incredibly high cutoff for the state round this cycle was 96. We did have several projects that scored above 90, and we can talk more about that later if you're interested. But yeah, unfortunately, we just didn't have any funded in the statewide program this cycle. So to quickly remind you all about our budget, the statewide budget was reduced from 568.7 to 168.7 million. Our regional round was impacted by this, so we went from 15.9 million to 4.7. And the board initially adopted the Cycle 7 policy framework almost 1 year ago today, which was our guiding document for the regional ATP. But I did come back to the board in September to request an amendment just to make revisions to our policy framework regarding these budget changes, and that was approved. So those changes included setting a limit of 1 application per agency at a maximum of $2 million and allowing SACOG to fund pre-construction phases in all circumstances, adhering to the statewide guidelines. I thought it might be helpful to show our historical regional ATP budget. So as you can see, for the most part, we have actually steadily increased over the cycles in the amount of funding. Last cycle saw an unprecedented amount of $1 billion infusion at the state level that afforded us a $45 million round. And with the exception, as you can see in cycle 3, there was an augmentation. The initial funding was lower before that augmentation, but with that exception, this cycle is the lowest amount of money that we've ever received within our region, just for a full cycle. This blue line shows that the number of projects, and it shows that just because the funding increases does not necessarily mean that we are able to always fund more projects. The ATP faces many challenges. A few of those include rising project costs and the intensely competitive nature of the program. But the small budget this cycle did make it particularly challenging both within our region and within the state. So moving on to our regional round for this cycle and the recommendations, we had 12 applicants that competed for a total of $4.721 million. We got a total ATP request of $16.064 million. And for the funding recommendations, which you can find in attachment A, both the funding and the ranked contingency list, we are recommending 2 projects for full funding and 2 projects for partial funding. The 2 projects for full funding are City of Sacramento and City of West Sacramento. And the 2 that are recommended for partial funding are Sacramento County and Yolo County / Winters partnership project. So this is our process for the regional ATP. We begin with our regional ATP team, which is comprised of myself and EDCTC and PCTPA staff. We begin by collaborating on any revisions that need to be made to the policy framework prior to it coming to the Transportation Committee and Board. And then we open up our call for projects. Once that closes, we then, with the regional team, screen the projects for eligibility. And then we begin our work with the working group after that. So you can find the working group roster in attachment D and our process for member selection in attachment F. In November, our multidisciplinary working group began reviewing all of the projects. We then held several meetings for discussions, for them to ask any questions that they had, which we then shared with our project sponsors and gave them a chance to respond if there were any specific questions. And then they went back and individually scored the projects using the board-approved scoring criteria, which you can find in our policy framework, and that's attachment E. And then to develop these funding recommendations, we take the highest scoring projects. We ensure that they meet our board-approved minimum of 40% of the funding going towards a disadvantaged community. And then we ensure that they have at least 1 fully funded phase, which we call deliverable project phases. So that's something like design or environmental, non-infrastructure, or a combination of a few of those. So some upcoming milestones, we are seeking board approval, including a signed resolution. If that's approved, then this package will go to the California Transportation Commission and Caltrans in April. And then the commission will consider all regional projects for adoption in June. After that, our staff will work to program the projects into the MTIP. I'm currently working on scheduling in-depth debriefs with each of our applicants that were not successful this cycle. And once we have those calls, I'll also be following up with technical assistance opportunities to support them as they continue to seek grant funding for their active transportation projects. So again, this is Again, this is an action item. Before I read the action, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the Transportation Committee's support, SACOG Board's support, our management support, and my fellow colleagues, and then also PCTPA and EDCTC for just being so helpful during my first round of ATP here at SACOG, but also just all the work that went into such a challenging cycle. I'm very grateful for that. I just wanted to express my appreciation to everyone. So again, the action item is the Transportation Committee recommend the SACOG Board approve by resolution the 6 County 2025 Regional ATP and recommendations and contingency list, that we authorize the Executive Director to develop the transmittal documentation to submit this package to the CTC, and direct staff to prepare the required MTIP amendments. So thank you. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Do we have any clarifying questions for Ms. Summer Lopez? If not, I'd love to go to public comment. But I'd like to ask a question. I received public comment via email from Supervisor Lucas Ferrix.
Yes.
Do you read that into the record, or, okay?
Thank you,
Do you-
Chair Lauren.
Can
I'll
we
do-
cover that first? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, you bet. I'll do that now. From Lucas Frericks, Yolo County Supervisor. Good evening, or excuse me, good afternoon. I hope this note finds you well. I wanted to send you a note in support of the ATP funding recommendations, and specifically the $369,000 award for the Yolo County SR 128 I-505 interchange project. The project is located in my supervisorial district, and it is an essential component in helping address a long shared public infrastructure challenge in the city of Winters and Yolo County. I appreciate that SACOG staff have recommended this project for approval, as it addresses a serious gap in the pedestrian and bike network for City of Winters and Yolo County residents at the SR 128 I-505 Russell Boulevard interchange. There are many worthy ATP projects before you for consideration, but I hope you will all support the staff recommendation when it's before you in the SACOG Transportation Committee meeting, and again at the full SACOG Board later in March. Thank you again for your attention to this important issue, and thank you for your continued service to the region via your work on the SACOG Board. And that completes his public comment.
Thank you so very much. Do we have Tan Allison in the audience? I have a card to make a public comment. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I'm not sure if that's an I. It could say Ian. So please clarify.
Good morning, Dan Allison. I'm representing myself today. And before retirement, I was the Safe Routes to School Coordinator for San Juan Unified. And I would like to speak in favor of the Whitney Avenue project that Sacramento County is doing. It was a key recommendation of the Safe Routes to School program that Whitney be revised, changed. It's a very unsafe street currently. 2 San Juan schools are directly on that street, Whitney Avenue and Churchill Middle School. And there are 3 other schools where students frequently cross that street. Many of the Whitney Avenue students do not live on the south side of the street where the school is, but live on the north side. And if they're walking or bicycling to school, have to cross that street. It's a high-speed street. It has excess capacity in it. In other words, it was built for a much higher traffic level than is currently there, which encourages people to speed. And I really am glad to see this project finally coming around. Of course, I wish it had full funding, but I'm glad to see it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your comment. Bringing it back to the directors. There are directors here from many of the districts. I'm sure that you would love to speak on it. Director Telemontes, would you like to begin?
Thank you. And thank you so much. So this is my first transportation meeting and probably the most exciting because I represent the community of Northgate and Garland and Natomas that is receiving full funding for the Northgate Boulevard Complete Streets. This is a disadvantaged community. We've been left behind for so many years. We've had so many pedestrian fatalities. We have 3 front-facing schools in front of a 5-lane freeway, basically. and people are using it as a cut through to get to downtown. And so I'm just very grateful for our City of Sacramento staff and the Transportation Committee for fully funding this. And I am just so excited for the 22nd. I think that's a SACOG meeting. I don't think I'm an alternate that day, but I am really excited to deliver the good news to my community and help save lives. Public safety remains at the forefront of my priorities as a council member and vice mayor. So just very grateful and thankful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Director Early or Director Desmond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to speak up close in time from Dan's comments. He kind of stole my thunder, Dan. I don't know where you are back there. So the Sac County project, Whitney Avenue Road Diet, is entirely within my unincorporated county district, and it straddles really Carmichael and Arden Arcade. Everything Dan said is absolutely accurate. You know, these roads were built for a time where there was a high school right there and there was a hospital right there. So they were built for a much larger traffic flow. I think this project is going to be really beneficial to people who live in that community, especially those who go to those nearby schools. And he mentioned 2 schools, but there are a lot of additional schools in the area as well. And something else we see in that area is you've heard me say this before, a very large refugee population in that community. And we're seeing a lot more pedestrian traffic in these communities than we ever have. And so this project is going to be really great to help them be able to go to and from these schools in particular in a much more safe way. I too wish it was fully funded, but I know we have a finite amount of dollars and a lot less dollars this year. And I think, you know, I don't think things look too promising for the next couple of years either with these grants, but very supportive of the Whitney Avenue project and thank staff for all your work on this.
I wanted to make sure I also reiterate thanking staff for quite honestly the tremendous amount of work that went in to this process, both in receiving, scoring. I know that you all did not come to these decisions easily. It is unfortunate that there are fewer funds, and I do echo Director Desmond, Vice Chair Desmond's sentiment that we will probably continue to go into lean years. We are very appreciative and thankful that we are receiving, West Sacramento is receiving full funding. Again, like you heard from many of my colleagues, these dollars are desperately needed. And again, just very much appreciate all the hard work.
The chair recognizes Director Bloomgarden.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say I fully support those that were awarded. I know that the finite amount of money is tough, and it certainly doesn't appear as if there's going to be more in the future. I would like to acknowledge the fact that there's going to be some assistance for further projects down the line. I know ours made the contingency list. We've got a high school where folks are trying to cross State Highway 20, and I've had some preliminary discussions with SACOG, and I appreciate the support. But this is great that we're able to do something for those projects that receive scores, and I'm hopeful we can get more money in this ATP program in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Just like to say that I fully support it as well. I know some of our community members were trying to work on some safe route to schools as well. My community, however, is not underserved, as you might know, but I still think this is a great opportunity for those communities that are. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Jones. If there aren't any other public comments, I live in Winters, and I just want to paint the scenario. The Highway 128 has been there a long time, but Winters is on the western end of 128. When the 505 was built in, I believe, 1959, it cuts through, and there's a bridge for 128. Well, that bridge in 1959, I'm sure had a different list of priorities of what it was trying to serve. But the priorities now are there's, well over 100, maybe 200 families on the other side. The only way that they could get to the closest grocery store, to a school board meeting, to an athletic game, or, be in leadership after school, anything, is to be in a vehicle because it's not safe to walk. It's certainly not safe to bike. It's a dangerous overcrossing. So it's a county and city partnership, and we really appreciate any money to help make our community safer. So I'm so glad there's so much support for this. Any other comments? With that, I'd be looking for a motion.
Early moves.
Early.
Desmond seconds.
All right, we have a motion by Early, a second by Desmond, and we will do a roll call vote.
Thank you. Director Boomgarden,
Aye.
Rollins for Branscombe, Chapman,
Aye.
Clarici,
Aye.
Early,
Aye.
Montez for Jennings,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Sander absent, Vice Chair Desmond,
Aye.
Vice Chair Howdeshelt,
Aye.
and Chair Lauren.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Motion
Chair Lauren,
carries.
do you
Yes.
mind if I just say a couple
Yes.
of things on that? So if you remember recent history here, we actually wanted to see if the state would let us bank those funds because 4.7 million across 6 counties, right? Does not necessarily make for a lot of happy jurisdictions because we have to, there's no way to make all of that fit, right? And I just want to, she walked away, but Summer Lopez did before her accolades, but this is Summer's first ATP round. I mean, she takes this incredibly seriously and diligently, and she did a fantastic job just managing, right? The review panel, and as you heard, she'll also do a lot of follow-up one-on-one consultations with your jurisdictions that they didn't make it. 4.7 million is, we have a hard enough time doing 100 million across 4 counties, if you remember the last funding round 2 years ago. So 4.7 across 6 was very difficult, but the staff did a fantastic job, and those consultations are available and coming for your jurisdictions. And just one thing to note too, just to remind you all, the disadvantaged community score, and Director Jones, you had mentioned this, only kicks in if we were below that 40% threshold. So it actually didn't kick in this time. Just as a reminder, if we fall below that, it kicks in and we sort of assign points to get to that 40%. We didn't have to do that this time. But we know there's just so many important needs out there, right? So many safety needs. You've talked a lot passionately about Safe Routes to School projects. So we're going to work to continue to figure out how we can help fund those important projects, and our staff is available to follow up with yours. And again, just congrats to Summer on getting through, at least from the committee perspective, the first cycle of ATP.
Thank you so much for your comments, and I think we are all very grateful for Summer's work here. Thank you. With that, we'll move to item number 4. It will be presented by Barbara von Bechtold, and it is the contract authorization for SB 125.
Good morning, everybody. Barbara von Bechtold. I'm a transportation planner on our transportation team. Before you have the contract authorization request for the Senate Bill 125 Long-Term Financial Plan and Recovery Strategy and Annual Financial Analysis. So SACOG, again, our role is the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, or RTPA, for the 4 counties, Sacramento, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba. We're tasked with administering those state SB 125 one-time bridge funding to eligible transit agencies in those 4 counties. And last year we completed the first year allocation of those SB 125 funds. As part of our role in administering those funds, we have to complete an annual financial analysis and a long-term financial plan and recovery strategy. For our transit operators in the 4 counties, the analysis, the goal of it is to look at an approach to maintain the region's transit operations while working to achieve fiscal sustainability for our transit operators once those SB 125 funds are expended, because again, they're one-time state funds. The long-term financial plan recovery strategy has to be completed by June 30th, 2026, so that our operators can maintain their eligibility for transit intercity rail capital program funds from the state starting in fiscal year 26-27. So we want them to be able to maintain their access to those funds for future projects. So what we've done, we've completed a competitive procurement process to select a contractor to complete the required long-term financial plan and recovery strategy, as well as that annual fiscal analysis. And through a competitive process, we selected HDR to complete all the tasks at a cost of about $700,000. And that includes the financial analysis we'll do annually throughout the life of the program. So that'll go through the end of 2029. they'll be working with us on that. And you have attachment A with your item that shows the proposed scope of work for the project, so you can see what they'll be doing with us and for us. So we're asking that the Transportation Committee recommend to the SACOG Board to approve the selection of our contractor, HDR, for the SB 125 Long-Term Financial Plan and Recovery Strategy and the annual financial analysis at a cost of $700,000, and then also delegate authority to the Executive Director to negotiate and execute a contract with our selected contractor. And with that, I can answer any question you might have.
Thank you so very much. Do we have any clarifying questions from the board? Otherwise, I'll go to public comment, and Mike Barnbaum, you are turned in a sheet. Someone up.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Lauren. For what staff mentioned and what they're recommending, when roll call comes up, I will stand in support of the staff recommendation, but I wanted to make some comments in addition to supporting the recommendation. We often have heard, as staff said, fiscal sustainability. How often have we heard every month when we're up in Woodland about the fiscal cliff that we all could be facing? And it often comes up every month in those meetings. As YOLO TD Chair Early would know, that we're all too familiar with that when we hear about that every month in Woodland. I wanted to share some news from my feed I got breaking from the state legislature, shared by the California Transit Association in their words. Senator Jesse Arreguín and Assemblymember Mark Gonzalez proposed $2 billion in emergency transit funding to keep California moving through 2027. Without it, impacts to local transit service are likely. We must act now. Hashtag Safe Transit, hashtag Invest in Our Future. $2 billion for public transit equals an investment in California's future. Keeps local transit agencies running, prevents service cuts and gridlock, meets capital investment statewide. No word on what the bill number is. I did react to this and looked at the legislature's website. It is still too soon to gravitate to what a bill number is, but as soon as I can get my hands on a number and talk to Michael Pimentel upstairs in this building between meetings, we'll get something to you shortly, because if this breaking news is happening, this is something that needs to be followed. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and we look forward to learning more about the Senate bill. Bringing it back to the directors. Any discussion on the item? Looking for a motion in support of the recommendation.
Early moves.
Early, I have a, go ahead. All right, we have a motion by Director Early and a second by Director Chapman, and we will have a roll call vote.
Director Baumgarten,
Aye.
Rollins for Branscombe,
Aye.
Chapman,
Aye.
Clarici,
Aye.
Early,
Aye.
Talamantes for Jennings, Jones,
Aye.
Sander absent, Vice Chair Desmond, Vice Chair Howdeshell,
Aye.
and Chair Lauren.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right.
And
motion
Chair
passes.
Lauren, one more. I promise I won't speak.
No,
up
no,
with
you
every
can for
item.
everyone. It's,
I won't
we
do that
welcome
to
it.
you. But I do want to just remind you, the item you just approved, right, SB 125, to look at for the fiscal health of all the transit operators. This is an issue that is going to be very much in front of the board and all the transit operators this year. More than half of the board, the SACOG board, also sits on transit agency boards, as some of you have already acknowledged. We have to do as we put forth in the January board meeting around transit. We're going to have to renegotiate an MOU among all the region's transit operators, but probably even more importantly, we're going to have to figure out how we can work on the long-term sustainability and the financial health of all the operators. We're not alone in this. It's not a unique problem to our region. How we can overcome the uncertainty at the federal level and all kinds of funding, but especially transit funding. We have a workshop at your April board meeting. So the full board meeting in April, we're going to bring in a speaker on transit, like our Transit 101, who we're very excited about. At your May board meeting, we're going to bring in a speaker on microtransit. So rural, suburban, and microtransit. You've expressed a lot of interest in this. And then you're going to be just hearing more a little bit from us as we go, working with our transit operators, especially working with those of you that sit on those transit agency boards, basically how we can come together as a team in this region and make sure that our operators don't go off the fiscal cliff, but we help them. So more to come.
Thank you, Dirk. Thank you so much for your comments and giving us that look of the future. Director Early has a comment.
Thank you. So one of the things that we are doing in YTD, and this brings up for me, and I want to highlight it as a potential model for other transit agencies as well in our region, is that we, as you heard in the public comment, we actually have been talking about our fiscal cliff. Probably for the past year and a half, we've been sounding alarm and seeing that although we have dollars now that we need to spend and have a duty to do that for our residents in our region, we also have a duty to look forward and pay attention to our financial health. And so with that, and as chair, we are pushing forward to do actually workshops amongst ourselves, again, in YTD. We have 3 separate workshops that are coming to do a one-on-one and a basic education on where are the dollars going, where are the dollars coming from, and we have leaders from those different departments, agencies coming to educate us on that. We have a second one that, again, we will talk about the potential grant dollars, where there are opportunities in the future and what that might look like. And with our third, really talking about what are the needs of our region and what are the needs of our community, again, as we look forward and see that this potential fiscal cliff is coming. I would encourage SACOG staff to come to these workshops if you are not already aware of them. And again, all of this really is leading up to what will our budget be in the future. We know right now that we fiscally are doing well and our budget neutral, but we know that that's not going to happen in the future. And so this really is laying the groundwork and the foundation for our entire board to make informed decisions about our financial health and make some of those have some of those hard discussions about what can and can't be covered. And so I would just raise that up.
I appreciate that. I just want to add, we actually are going to have someone from our team speaking, I think on the April 14th, at the April 14th meeting, specifically to talk about some of the state funding that's coming into transit. So really appreciate the invitation to have us speak on it and be a part of it, and just make sure that we're involved with you along the way, because it's going to take a lot of folks to kind of get through this. So thank you for doing that.
I'm really grateful for the comments, but most grateful for all the enthusiasm about transportation here. Yay. We're all transportation nerds, I believe. We're moving on to our last action item, which is
nerds or geeks?
Geeks. I'm both. Happily and proudly.
that's not on the agenda, so no, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Maybe both. I don't know.
And I'm
Yeah.
a policy wonk as well, as long as
Okay.
we're throwing out words.
All right, I won't call you any more names for the rest of the day. We're going to move on to item number 5. It's the Capital Area Region Tolling Authority appointment, and it'll be presented by Kathleen Hanley.
Yes, good morning, Transportation Committee. I'm Kathleen Hanley, Principal Planner on your transportation team here at SACOG, and I also lead the staff work for the Capital Area Regional Tolling Authority, or CARTA. As this committee is well aware, CARTA is a joint powers authority between SACOG, Caltrans, and YOLO Transportation District. As part of the formation of CARTA, SACOG gets 2 voting seats on the CARTA board. One of those seats currently must be from a director located in Yolo County. Director Oscar Villegas, Yolo County Supervisor, holds that seat. And then the other seat that SACOG has is an at-large seat that can be appointed from anywhere in the region. For the last roughly year, maybe a little less, Director Rich Desmond has held the at-large seat for SACOG on the CARTA board, but has indicated that he needs to vacate that seat. And so the chair has developed a recommendation for Director Patrick Kennedy to replace Director Rich Desmond as CARTA's at-large seat, as SACOG's at-large seat on the CARTA board. And so I'm here to present that staff report. The chair makes the recommendation, and then we'll take it to the full board. Happy to take any questions.
Do you want to make it? Yeah.
Well, please, my fellow members of the CARTA board, please don't mistake this as a lack of affection.
I'm
in front of you.
offended.
Other than Supervisor Villegas, who is very difficult to deal with at times, I will say that publicly. Yeah, no, I appreciate this. As some of you may recall, I think initially Supervisor Kennedy was the SACOG designee on CARTA, and then he came off SACOG for a year. And so now he's back on SACOG. It seems more appropriate to have him on there because I think as the tolling lanes or managed toll lanes enter Sacramento County, they would much more likely affect his district. So I'm supportive of this. I appreciate your support as well.
Do we have any other comments from the board or clarifications? I don't have any comment cards here and I don't see anything online.
Early moves.
All right, we have a motion by Director Early and a
And
second
with
by,
appreciation for his service, Howard seconds.
all right, and the second. And before we go to the vote, I just want to say this is such a great board to work with and I know you're going to miss them. So I'm hoping that you send donuts or
You're missing
something.
out, sir.
Yeah, I hope you
do I get a
send them
plaque?
food. Yeah, no.
Where
nope,
is the plaque?
Nope, no
For less
plaque.
than a year, Director Desmond.
All right, we're going to have a roll call vote.
Thank you. Director Boomgarden,
Aye.
Rollins for Branscombe,
Aye.
Chapman,
Aye.
Clarici,
Aye.
Early,
Aye.
Talamantes for Jennings. Jones,
Aye.
Sander absent, Vice Chair Desmond.
Aye.
Vice Chair Howdeshelt.
Aye.
And Chair Lawrence.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, exciting news. We're moving to the information portion of our agenda. And we will begin with item 6, Regional Transportation Demand Management Platform NorCal Go launch. And it will be presented by Nicole Porter. Welcome.
Okay, hi. Good morning, Chair Loren, Vice Chairs Desmond, Howdeshelt, Transportation Committee. I'm Nicole Zeeling Porter. I'm an associate analyst here at SACOG on our transportation team, and I work primarily on our agency's sustainable mobility program. Here's the clicker. Okay, as a quick refresher for those who might not be familiar.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Mr. Corliss, is this an inaugural presentation? Is this the first time Ms. Porter has presented before us?
No.
No, Vice Chair Howdeshelt, and it sounds like you have not remembered Ms. Porter's
It is for
remarkable
2025.
presentations to you.
True,
I'm kidding.
for this year,
She has
yes.
been here before.
I just wanted my fellow directors to know that my unusual quietness is not for lack of a pulse.
All right, we are listening.
Okay, and with that,
Great energy for this morning. All right, so as a quick refresher for those who might not remember, or for those who might be new to the committee, one of the ways that SACOG plans for reducing vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions in our region is through our sustainable mobility program. We really work to foster the next generation of mobility solutions to make it easier, safer, and cleaner for everybody to move throughout our region. And some of our program priorities include things like mobility as a service, electronic fare payments, van pool subsidies, and supporting our region's transportation management associations, TMAs for short, which I'll be referring to later. And all of these priorities can be served through a regional TDM or transportation demand management platform, which is the focus of today's item. So a bit of quick history. I'm going to build off of my colleague Chase's earlier presentation. The platform that you might have been familiar with in previous years was SAC Region 511. And if you had used it, you most likely maybe didn't love it either. So SAC Region 511 was the public-facing trip planner and trip logging website. And then, as Chase mentioned earlier, there has been this corresponding platform known as River Region 511, and that's what's really providing those true 511 services. So motorist aid, IVR phone system, real-life traffic information. And so our contracts for both of these platforms through different vendors were set to expire in the near future. And so last year, we really took a look at, okay, what services are we providing and where are opportunities to improve with some updates. And so last year, we started by pursuing a request for information. Really, we just wanted to get an understanding of who are the major players in this industry, How has the technology changed over the past few years? Is it possible to consolidate these contracts into one, or should we keep having them separate? And we learned that we should indeed keep having them separate. The technology is not there to create one. And so last fall, we went out with an RFP for just the regional TDM platform component. So that's the one on the left in pink, SAC Region 511. Now we know that we didn't want to plan for this platform in a bubble. We not only represent the SACOG region, but also the SJCOG region with this platform. And so we spent about a year talking to partners, TMAs, other organizations to really hear what was working well and just what wasn't working well and what they'd like to see. So a little bit of a summary is up on this screen. Ultimately, our big takeaways were that the platform in its old version just wasn't user-friendly. It was pretty clunky, a bit outdated. There wasn't a ton of customizability for folks, and the ride matching capabilities were lacking. For instance, folks that might have signed up back in 2015 no longer lived in our region. So if you would get matched to join a carpool with them, it probably wasn't going to work out. So ultimately, all of the feedback that we heard, doing a little bit of research and monitoring what other agencies are doing, we put together our vision for what this updated platform should look like. And we really settled on three main vision components. So first, we wanted to enable our partner agencies to implement their mobility benefit programs, things like guaranteed ride home or telework subsidies. We also wanted to empower all individuals in our region and the SJCOG region to look at all of their sustainable transportation options. And then, of course, going back to one of our agency's priorities, we wanted to encourage and measure whatever reductions in vehicle miles traveled that we're able to help facilitate. And so I am excited to announce that at the end of last year, through our RFP process, we selected our preferred vendor, which is Agile Mile. And we also took a quick second to recognize that, with this new platform, we should maybe update our brand. SAC Region 511 isn't really providing 511 services. It's really that public-facing piece. It's also pretty Sacramento-centric. And as I've mentioned, we're representing multiple counties and regions. And quite frankly, it doesn't really roll off the tongue. It's not fun. So we put together a new brand, which is NorCal Go. And for today's announcement, I did want to say that as of February 1st, we are live. So anybody who lives or works in our region or the SJCOG region can visit norcalgo.org. You can also go for it. Yes, please. That's why it's here. Take a picture, scan the code. Yes. You can access it either just on any mobile browser, or you can download the app in the Apple or Android store. I'm going to wait till I see the phones go down before moving on. Okay. What a good morning we're having. Okay, so for anybody who didn't raise their phone, I'm not going to call you out, but you might be wondering, why would I use this? Well, NorCal Go is designed to make your life easier for wherever, whenever, however you travel. Once you have an account, you can find information about all of your transportation options, which ultimately can help you make an informed choice about how you're going to get to work, school, your next sporting event, or crowded concert. And then once you have an account, you can find rides. So you can see all of your travel options, including our region's microtransit, on-demand transit, paratransit services, which the more traditional Google or Apple Maps aren't able to show you a lot of times. You can join a carpool, meet a transit or bike buddy in case if you don't want to make that trip by yourself the first couple of times. You can also log your trips manually or also automatically. All you have to do is allow the app to access your GPS data, which you already do when you use map services, and it will only happen within the app, but then it can track when you make specific trips, so then you're not having to enter them each time. And then you can also earn rewards. So our region, as I mentioned, has several transportation management associations that provide employer-based benefits to members, and you probably know those as YOLO Commute or 50 Corridor TMA or South Natomas TMA, groups like that. But even if you're not part of a TMA, every NorCal Go user can earn points whenever they log a sustainable trip, and those points can be used to help you earn discounts to local and national businesses, restaurants, shops, and you're also entered into a monthly gift card drawing. And we think that this is an opportunity for not just daily travel or routine trips. I think that we know that our region has something for everyone. We have an incredibly strong art scene. We have national sports teams, a plethora of local wineries and breweries, and we know that we attract visitors year-round. And with a platform as strong as NorCal Go, I think that we're uniquely positioned to leverage these attractions and help our region thrive. So as an example, in Kansas City, their regional council has used their Agile Mile platform to get people to and from their major league soccer games by creating an extensive carpool network. And I think that we're all aware that just next door, the A's will be going to Sutter Health Park for the next 3 seasons. And this is just an example of an opportunity to try and build a public-private partnership using our platform. Our team is working on creating a branded page on NorCal Go that can show locals and visitors all of their transportation options to and from the park on game days, including the sweeper bus that YOLO TV is planning on running for their evening games. So folks don't have to pay $25, $30 for parking. They don't have to sit in congested roads for half an hour to an hour getting to and from the game if they don't want to. And we've also had some early conversations with Capital Corridor to see how we can work with them to provide some personalized trip planning options for folks that might take the train to the daytime games. And so this is just one example of how we can build upon this tool to make it easier for people to get around our region. So now that you know about our vision, what's up next? We know that it's not enough to just build an app. We need to get people using it. So starting on Monday, March 10th, our team is launching a regional challenge that encourages people to go buy a sustainable mode. All somebody has to do is log one sustainable trip in the app each week. And by sustainable, it could be transit, biking, walking, carpooling, anything that's not driving alone. And they'll be entered to win a gift card. And we've been working with our communications team to put together a toolkit of materials, which we'll send to all of your local agency staff, partner agencies to help spread the word. And that will run through the end of April. And our hope is that this challenge really encourages everybody to make a NorCal Go account and start using it as a travel tool in their daily life to achieve our ultimate goal of making the SACOG region a region of choice. And so with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is very exciting. Do we have any clarifying questions? All right, Director Early.
Elizabeth, clarifying question, and well, actually, I guess it will be. I'm hopeful that so one, great job. Visuals great, everything great. I'm excited. Raised my phone up. I didn't even know I was being prompted to do it. And then you went to the next slide, like, now put your phones down. My question would be particularly for all the electeds, not only on this transportation committee, but also on SACOG. I would appreciate having like some sort of like social media toolkit.
Yeah.
And you guys anticipate everything, by the way. So yeah, I'm sure. So that we could also spread the word, and it makes it just easy for me if I can just copy paste, reshare, whatever the case may be, because we all have our own networks and platforms in our communities. And also I would love like maybe even a little competition. And so we could maybe see whose district has the most participants in it. I'm just saying, I'm a competitive athlete. Everything's a competition. And so I think that would be fun as well. There you go.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. We are working on the social media toolkit. We're also planning on featuring each week of the challenge a different mode to encourage folks. I love the idea of a competition. I think at the end of it, everybody would be a winner. Yeah, it's friendly.
Director Rollins.
How do we get on the major events page for events happening in our area?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. You can feel free to email me or Victoria. Our emails are up here. We are trying to just keep a pulse on a monthly basis of the events that come up, different festivals or agricultural events. And when you go to, for instance, when you're in the app or on norcalgo.org, you can go to find a route. And then there's a tab where instead of putting a destination, you can choose from a list of events, and then you can see your options. So we would just populate it right in there.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, Director Hushel.
So, Roseville has a Game Day Express. Would that be something that's linked to this?
Yeah, that's
Kings come back and we want to fill a bus, right?
Yes, we will coordinate with Roseville Transit to get that information incorporated. So
Or-
as
or
other.
similar type.
Mhm.
Then, to Director Early's challenge, I forget which program it is. We have weighted based on population and lane miles. I'm happy to accept the challenge if we have some weighting system.
Challenge accepted. You heard it here first, folks.
We can't be formulaic.
Says Sacramento.
These
I'm sure there'll be
guys-
something fair.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Director Talamantes? I wasn't sure if you had.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say what perfect timing for the Sacramento, Northern California region. You know, I'm from Willows, California. It's a small country town. I used to work in Yuba City and Marysville as a high school counselor. And so, when you think about Northern California, you think about our sports teams. And my logic in life is like, I always root for the sports team that's the closest mile radius to me. So I hope everybody here in this room is a Sacramento Kings fan, Sacramento Republic fan, now an A's fan. Kidding, not kidding. Since we only have them temporarily. And a River Cats fan. Our sports is one thing that brings the entire country together, whether it's Super Bowl weekend, baseball, and it's what unites us all. And it's an economic driver. So seeing this transit app be intersected with what we're doing here as a region is just a perfect mechanism to just make us Northern California proud, boost our economy, and bring us together as a community. So kudos on your work.
Thank you.
Those are some outstanding comments. I'm really proud of us. I'm in Winters, I'm just a little bit outside the map, but I was really excited to download it on my phone, and I think I could get microtransit or, something to get to Davis and then use it from there. But it's really exciting, and I also probably need a little bit of a tutorial on it. It was a little bit hard for me. So,
Happy to
yeah,
do that.
I hate to confess that publicly, but yeah, I needed help. Any other comments? All right.
Chair
Um,
Lauren, just to
go ahead.
build on Director Talamantes' comments, the thing I picked up in the paper not so long ago, which for those of you who know, we have a mega region working group with the Bay Area and San Joaquin County, NorCal Go, not just Sacramento Go. The MLB commissioner came here, right, and left a meeting on, could there be a future permanent team in this region? Is this a trial run for us? And said, I came here thinking this was a city of 500,000. I'm leaving understanding it's a mega region of 11 million. So I think we know who put that bug in his ear, but it's a really good one. And I think we should be thinking right that way for that. And we know already with the concerts that we have and the writer shed we have, right? This is a huge opportunity. So thanks again to Nicole for her not so inaugural presentation. Glad you repeatedly enjoy the presentation. Appropriate.
Thank you so very much. It was her first for 2025. I'll just split the middle there. Going for item number 7, am I right? Yeah. Regional Trail Implementation Strategy Update with Summer Lopez. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yes. So again, I'm Summer Lopez. This is one of the projects that falls under the Active Modes program here at SACOG. And I'm joined today with Mia Candy. She's with Tool Design Group, she's our project manager on the consultant side for the 2026 Regional Trail Implementation Strategy. This is item number 7 in your packet. It's an information item. So this is our agenda for this presentation. I'll be giving a high-level overview of the context of where this strategy is coming from and share what we're currently working on. Mia will share what we're currently working on, and then we'll talk about next steps and then answer any questions that you might have. So the effort for developing the Regional Trail Network began in 2018 when it was realized that although there were many existing and planned trails, bicycle, pedestrian, and multi-use trails throughout the region, there was really no true connectivity amongst all of the different trails. So during 2022 plan development, SACOG worked very closely with member agencies, right-of-way owners, regional stakeholders, the community, and the SACOG board to understand their vision for developing the region's trail network. Together, this broad coalition of people determined a series of goals, which is included on the list here is on the PowerPoint slide.
And then utilizing these goals, SACOG's staff developed a prioritization framework to understand which trail projects are most closely aligned with the region's goals and which are closest to implementation. The SACOG board adopted that plan in 2022. That's the 2022 Regional Trail Network Action Plan. During that plan development, SACOG also started to hear from local jurisdictions about what challenges they face when implementing regional trails. The main ones that came out of the plan include institutional challenges like multi-jurisdictional projects or partnering with federal or state agencies or other large partners like railroads, which always add time, complexity, and cost to projects. And then meaningful community engagement is the second one. A third is infrastructure barriers like freeways, rivers, canals, lack of access points, again, railroads, and siloed local planning efforts. Whoops, excuse me. This helped us understand that SACOG has a vital role to play in helping local agencies overcome implementation barriers. SACOG is uniquely positioned to build relationships, coordinate across and between agencies, keep the regional network prioritization framework up to date with the most recent data, and support local agencies through technical assistance. With an understanding established for how SACOG could support agencies, we initiated this 2026 Regional Trail Implementation Strategy, which is really just meant to implement that 2022 action plan. It will provide supportive implementation actions for jurisdictions and for SACOG. SACOG does not have land use authority to implement the trail projects, so this is our way of providing supercharged support to the jurisdictions as they implement all of their projects. The key tasks and outcomes are listed here. I'd like to highlight a few of them. One is convening a regional working group, which is made up of local and regional agencies, advocates, and a few special partners like Caltrans and others. We also will update and rerun the network prioritization, which will help us identify 10 projects to develop implementation strategies for. And then we'll also develop implementation strategies for SACOG, which will include recommendations for governance and funding, and then provide technical assistance to up to 10 agencies and tribal governments through this project timeframe. We will see you a few times this year as we work through the deliverables, and we'll also see you early next year to review the draft and final strategy. And now I'd like to pass it to Mia to share what we've been working on.
Thanks so much, Summer. Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Mia Candy. I'm a senior planner with Tool Design Group. We're an active transportation and complete streets consultancy. I'm going to present on two items. One is the technical assistance, and one is the key findings from this first step that we've taken on this project. As Summer mentioned, during the 2022 plan, SACOG staff spent a lot of time talking to local agencies about what implementation challenges they experience when trying to build trails. And one of the main things that they heard was that communities were really looking for technical assistance from SACOG. So through this process, we are going to be piloting SACOG's first ever trails-specific technical assistance program. The focus of the program is going to be to advance projects that were identified as being priorities during the 2022 plan. And our kind of secondary goal is to set up a replicable process so that SACOG can continue the trails technical assistance in perpetuity. And so we have there's a link on the screen. There's also, the technical assistance is open right now. We're already getting a lot of interest from local agencies. We're going to provide technical assistance to up to 10 local agencies, including hopefully tribal governments. The applications opened on February 10th, and they will be open for another 2 weeks. And so we will then have a selection process and announce the selected communities the week of April 28th. Technical assistance will roll out between May of this year and spring of next year. So yeah, if you know of folks who are interested in applying, and if you have any questions about it, let us know. To give you a sense of the types of technical assistance that we'll be providing, we have a high-level menu of services. Again, on the website, you can see the descriptions of each of these. So selected communities will identify the top 4 priority services, and then we'll kind of match them with a service based on funding availability and consultant availability. And examples of services that communities might be able to receive are things like grant application support, feasibility assessments, funding strategies, signing strategies, trail conceptual design, and then cost opinions for conceptual design, or even just things like community engagement and making the case for trails in communities where maybe there's some more pushback on trail development. So again, happy to answer any questions you have during the Q&A. I'll transition now to talking about what our findings have been from our challenges and opportunities analysis. During the 2022 plan, SACOG staff heard some very high-level challenges, and so our task with this was to do a deep dive and understand what are the nuances and what are the challenges that most agencies and communities in the SACOG region are facing in developing the regional trail network. And then what we did is and you'll see this in the memo, is that we developed essentially a menu of opportunities or strategies that can be used to overcome those challenges. And so these are strategies both for SACOG as an agency, but also for local member agencies. So we reviewed the findings from the 2022 plan. We interviewed SACOG staff who they themselves have also been doing one-on-one interviews with all the local agencies. So we heard everything that they had heard from those agencies. We met with the working group for this project. We facilitated an activity to discuss challenges and opportunities. And then we also looked at national case studies and local case studies of success stories. Overall, we identified 35 distinct challenges, and then we grouped them into 7 high-level buckets. So more information about each of these is available in the memo, but I'll just highlight a few that I think are common issues and things that illustrate broader trends. So some have mentioned this, but one of the biggest things that we heard about is the challenge of the interface between railroad operators and trail development. In the SACOG region, there are 6 different rail operators, and so it's basically inevitable that trail projects will intersect at least once with a rail corridor. That could be at a minimum something like an at-grade rail crossing. But often it's much more than that because of kind of land use and convenience and all sorts of things. Trail projects are often directly in alignment with rail corridors, either with active corridors or even looking to repurpose decommissioned rail corridors. So whatever the level of overlap, there is and has to be coordination with rail operators, and that comes with challenges related to kind of regulation, funding, design, timelines, and procedural and process issues. So the second kind of bucket of challenges that we heard about is in terms of securing right-of-way to build trails. Trails, by their very nature, require stitching together property across multiple jurisdictions and landowners. And so this can require, it might be purchasing property, leasing, or even securing easements. And then a related issue is that even when agencies own all of the right-of-way, sometimes they'll find that there has been private encroachment onto that right-of-way, sometimes for decades. So these are the kind of tricky problems that staff are having to unpack. Because of the interjurisdictional nature of trail development, it can be really challenging in a region as big as the SACOG region to get local agencies and communities to agree on priorities. And then even once priorities are agreed on, so let's say we've decided that we all agree that this is the right alignment for the trail, there can be disagreement as to roles and responsibilities related to funding, development, maintenance, etc. Something else we heard is that agency staff can experience kind of community pushback or a lack of buy-in for trail development projects, both on the local level as well as the political level. And then I guess it's just one word on this slide, but funding, even though it's the 5th bullet, is probably the biggest and most important challenge that we heard about. In the memo that we shared, we just identified funding challenges, but this project actually has a whole task dedicated to identifying funding strategies. So we'll come back to you in the fall and present some of those funding strategies. The last couple things that we heard about is challenges related to, I'm sure not surprising, environmental review, compliance, permitting, and also litigation. So agencies shared with us experiences of basically being sued over trail projects, either in terms of right-of-way acquisition or design treatments, often citing CEQA. And this is not unique to trail projects. As you know, in California, it's something we see across the board for many planning development projects, and trails is just kind of one of the victims of that. And then finally, we heard about limited staffing capacity internally and some complexity around compliance with design standards. So yes, lots of challenges, but also we have a lot of great success stories, both nationally and as well as in the region. And the more we hear about those, the more ideas we have for how we can help overcome some of the challenges. So we tried to, for every challenge we identified a strategy that either SACOG or a local agency can use to overcome that strategy. And just on this slide, what I'll share are some of the things that we think SACOG as a regional MPO are best positioned to do. As Summer mentioned, SACOG does not own right-of-way, and so they have a very unique and powerful position in terms of how they can support local agencies with implementation. So that includes things like, oh, that's the wrong slide. That includes things like establishing and maintaining a list of shared regional priorities, which is what staff did when they established the 2022 regional network, acting as a liaison between local agencies and key partners like Rail, Caltrans, elected officials like yourselves, and regulatory agencies. SACOG can also offer funding that has a little bit more flexibility than some of the traditional transportation dollars, often which come with very restrictive timelines that can be in tension with the lengthy timelines we see with trails development. Something else, and this is something we're doing through this process, is that SACOG can provide technical assistance, guidelines, resources, tip sheets, really be a leader in pushing the needle and pushing the conversation and encouraging local agencies to be creative, be innovative about trail development. There are some things that SACOG does not have authority to do, but there are still ways to help local agencies do some of those things. So for example, policies that require developers to include trail segments in their developments are very successful and very popular. That's not something SACOG would do, but SACOG can help local agencies to look at case studies, look at templates, bring in consultants to help them get those policies in place. And then finally, SACOG is in a strong position to conduct community engagement, outreach, and education, not just around the benefits of trails and how trails have economic and health benefits for the SACOG region, but also in terms of advocating for high priority corridors. The other thing you'll see in the memo is a list, it's a preliminary list, we're starting to put it together, of partners that might need to be involved in trail development processes. So the coordination and collaboration and consensus building across public, private, nonprofit, and institutional partners is critical for the success of any trail development. And in the SACOG region, trail development requires coordination across dozens of partners to get miles on the ground. And so some partners are shared no matter who you are, and some are more relevant for specific counties or local municipalities. And so what we have in our memo is a preliminary list of who those partners might be. And it ranges all the way from, public agencies to regulatory agencies to elected officials, groups like this, as well as traditional and new media. And with that, I'll just close out with one final reminder about our technical assistance. So again, it's open for another 2 weeks. It closes on Friday, March 21st, if I got that date correctly. Summer and her team have been conducting office hours, so agencies can ask us questions and be well prepared in order to put the application together. We tried to keep the application really short and sweet so that there wasn't a burden or a hurdle to apply. So you'll be hearing more about that in the coming 2 weeks. And then finally, our next step on this project is to develop a methodology for updating the prioritization that was conducted in 2022. So we will come back to you in May with our draft framework, and we look forward to receiving your feedback on that. So now we're happy to answer any questions, or you can email Summer with questions after the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being able to deliver so much information so quickly. It's a lot. It's like a fire hose. I really appreciate it. Do the directors have clarified questions, or shall we go to public comment? All right, we do have a public comment by Mr. Coraza.
Good morning, Transportation Committee. My name is Vincenzo Coraza. I'm the Public Works Director for the City of Marysville. I'm also wearing a Blue Zones project jacket that my partner, I remember last year I came up to speak to the board, he gave me. So Blue Zones project is very involved in our region, Yuba City, Yuba County, City of Marysville, Sutter County. So first, the question is, I'm very excited about this project after I heard Summer and Mia present it. Second, the gears in my mind are running. The question is, are new projects eligible for this assistance, or does it have to be in the 2022 plan? Marysville has one plan in there that I don't know what it's about because we submitted it in the past administration for trails. But if there is something new, Blue Zones Project had collaborated or gathered all of the 4 agencies' bike and ped plans, and they brought it together and they wrote a really big report that I was going to say that's way too expensive. But a part of that was something called the spine. I talked to SACOG last year about the ATP 7 about it. We're excited about it. There's a trail, multi-agency trail system that we'd like to start at the college, to go through Yuba County, go through the city of Marysville, go through the city of Yuba City, go through Sutter County, and end up in the Sutter Buttes. And that to me is a perfect project for this if we could get the technical assistance from SACOG to move forward. There's a railroad, old railroad, abandoned railroad on the 5th Street Bridge that for some reason, for the longest time, Yuba City wasn't able to work with the railroads to get that to be a trails program. Anyways, things like that are just, the opportunities here is great. I'm really excited. I hope that we can have a new project idea that we could capitalize on this opportunity. So, and I could get the answers after the fact, but I just wanted to kind of bring that idea out there. If there's new ideas for this opportunity, that'd be really appreciated. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Do we want to answer it now?
I'm happy to answer just because I think it might help other jurisdictions. So at this point, we are purely focused on implementing the 2022 plan and the projects that were in the tiers 1 through 3 of that plan. We do believe that there will be an opportunity after the strategy is developed to come back and update our regional trail network, add projects, et cetera. On the technical assistance side, we are encouraging folks to apply if they have the time and they want to fill out an application, even if their project isn't in the 2022 plan, only because it would give us a backlog of the need of technical assistance, which really just helps us understand what types of assistance people are looking for. And it's something that, like Mia mentioned, is something that we would like to carry on in perpetuity once we figure out how we can do that. And so if folks have time, I would love to see their applications come through, but we will be prioritizing those for this initial round of technical assistance who are in the plan.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Directors, do we have questions or comments for Summer or Mia? I have a couple. In your presentation, you mentioned that there's a opportunity for a regional working group. I think it was 2024 to 2026. Can you say more about that, or what the timeline is for that?
Sure. So we've already convened the working group. We invited, I believe it's about 30 people from around the region, and that is local jurisdiction staff, regional agencies. We've invited a couple special partners like Caltrans District 3. We also invited Rails to Trails Conservancy, who's been active in it. If anyone wants to recommend other groups, I'm happy to reach out to them. We would love to include like CBO, other community-based organizations, or folks like Blue Zones, others who might be interested. We would love to have them. We had our first meeting in January, and out of those 30 people we invited, we ended up having, I think, around like 23 people show up, which is, I was very impressed and very happy to see that turnout. I think people are excited about and energized about trails, and there's a lot of synergy happening around that. So we will be meeting, I believe, 6 times throughout the entirety of this project. Our next meeting is going to be on April 1st, and we'll be talking about the methodology, and we'll also, the attachment that's in your packet with the full memo, we'll also be sharing a little more from that at that meeting as well.
That's excellent. And then I wanted to also follow up with, I think you mentioned that there's 35 shared challenges and that you probably have a suggested strategy for those. Is that also in the packet? Otherwise, I'd love to see that just to learn from it.
Yes, absolutely. It's the, I believe it's attachment A in the packet. It's the full memo, which is, I think, around 27 pages. But yeah, it's full of information. And if you have any questions after that, you can follow up with anyone here at the table. They can forward it to me, or you can email me directly as well.
Thank you. I did catch your email and I did write it down. Any other questions or comments? Thank you so very much for this work. It's, makes our lives better. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have
Through the
yes.
chair. I just want to check in. It looks like we've got 60 minutes of presentations and 25 minutes until the workshop is.
We're on top of that, Director
Thank you.
Havsheld. Yeah, Clint is gonna condense his item into just an introduction, and we're actually gonna push that to the April meeting for your feedback, so
Thank you.
we're good. Thank you for that.
Thank you so very much. Then we're moving to item 8, the US 50 Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan Overview with Dustin Foster. There he is.
Thank you. That's me. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Chair Lauren. Good morning, directors. My name is Dustin Foster. I'm a planner here on the transportation team. I'm the project manager of this project, US 50 CMCP. And the last time I presented to Transportation Committee was March of 2023, in case Director Havsheld was wondering. All right, so we're joined today. We're joined today here by Danira Soto, Caltrans District 3 planner, senior planner. Actually, no, yeah. But also she's done a lot of work on CMCPs in the region, so she's a co-lead with us on this plan. It's really a partnership with Caltrans District 3 and all the local agencies, and funded by a Caltrans headquarters strategic partnerships grant. And the work is tied to SACOG's work around the regional grant strategy, supporting projects in the region being more successful in discretionary grants, specifically state programs. Talk about that. And we'll be returning soon, maybe April, maybe May. Depending, to get input on the policy framework that will really guide the rest of the plan. All right, so here are the topics we're going to cover this morning. I'll give you a bit of background and context on the plan while we do these. We'll then discuss the plan area and existing conditions work that we're doing, and then we'll look ahead to the policy framework. So a little bit of background on CMCPs, what they are, why we do them, and which ones have been completed in the region. These really guide Caltrans's, a lot of their planning functions with their local partners around major highway improvements. However, they can also be completed by MPOs, RTPAs, and local agencies to address their needs. It's tied to the SB1 Solutions for Congested Corridors program. So for a project to be eligible for that program, it needs to be listed in this plan. These plans also involve prioritization of those projects as well. So that's an important key factor. These processes involve a lot of long-range planning and modeling. We're looking at, again, all transportation options, really a multimodal, look at a multimodal suite of projects, bicycle, pedestrian, transit, technology, safety, roadway improvements, you name it. And really overall, it's a long-range plan looking at improving corridor congestion, safety, environment, community needs. Here on the right side are CMCPs that have been completed in the region. I know Danira worked on several of these. And this is the 7th in the region, the last major highway in the region to not have a CMCP, and the first led by SACOG, and the first that will be approved by the SACOG board. So we really want to make sure you're all involved in guiding this process. So to look at the corridor from kind of a linear basis, this is the initial extent that we applied to the Caltrans grant with, from the west to the east, West Sacramento, all the way up to Pollock Pines, really the full length of US 50 throughout our region. And again, this is not just about the 50, right? We're looking at multimodal options. So as we designed the plan area for the corridor, which is our second part of this presentation, we wanted to make sure we took a part of really important key transportation assets like parallel roadways, the local networks, transit networks. And as you see here, the Gold Line, the American River Parkway are two key facilities to support that. Goals for CMCPs, we're generally looking to find those projects that are going to be in the center of that Venn diagram there between state and regional goals, local needs, and the funding criteria of the programs. We want, from the beginning, we've ensured that this project is going to align with SACOG's 2025 blueprint and really ensure that, as well as EDCTC's RTP, to ensure that those projects and those assumptions are captured, and then also moving forward will be eligible for upcoming SB1 programs in 2026. Again, we're trying to identify a range of multimodal opportunities. Many of these are identified by local partners in your local planning documents, whether it's an active transportation plan, a safety plan, so on and so forth. And we want to align with statewide plans and policies. There's been a big interest or a big policy focus on climate adaptation and equity, and ensuring those are included and incorporated in these plans as well. So for the process, we're here in that first key phase, defining the corridor characteristics. We're generally moving into that second phase where we're going to analyze the gaps and opportunities. Then in phase 3, we'll identify solutions. We'll model them, we'll analyze them, and then in 2026, we'll have an implementation plan. And again, all of this is leading to board approval by June 2026. And that lines up very nicely with the Solutions for Congested Corridors program that many of your staff and your agencies are going to be applying for. So key team members, I already noted myself and Danira. But we did a lot of work. We brought a consultant team on to support this work. It is being led by Jacobs. Charu Kukreja is our project manager, and Phil Lacombe is our planning and analysis lead. I believe they're listening in online today for any tough questions I'll send their way. But they have a lot of experience with CMCPs throughout the state, including the SR 99 CMCP that is currently going on. We're leveraging that expertise with a lot of local presence, right? So we have Drago Vantage, Sabrina Drago and her staff leading partner engagement, and then AIM Consulting, Katie DeMaio, leading community engagement. We also have Elite Transportation Group on to support modeling, and CHS Consulting to support transit planning. So our technical advisory committee, that is listed for you in attachment B, I believe. And this is the list of groups, staff from these organizations, jurisdictions, transit agencies, and so on. They're participating in bi-monthly meetings. They're going to help guide the process, review deliverables, and really help steer that. I'll describe actually some key inputs they provided in a few slides on our plan area. And really we want to make this group very, very inclusive. We want to make sure everyone feels like they have a place in this plan, using this group to really get the word out on the plan as well. So if there's anyone who you think is missing, or if your staff or anyone else wants to have one-on-ones to discuss this plan, happy to set those up. So looking at time, I'll pause there. There may be questions on that first initial part. Scanning the room.
Do the directors have any questions for this presentation? Mr. Foster at this time? Okay, please continue.
Great. So we have developed an existing conditions map that is linked in the staff report, so please go ahead and look at that. I'll be showing a regional wide slide. It's kind of hard to see on a slide, so you get a very much better granular view of that map. Again, we developed this between Caltrans District 3 and SACOG staff to get the right data, and then worked with our technical advisory committee to design the solutions area to make sure we're capturing all of your priorities. So here is that final solutions area. This is key. your project shall be included in that general area to be considered on the transportation project list. So in the first technical advisory committee in December, we had presented the kind of black outline there on the map. We had received some feedback from several advisory committee members and set up some one-on-ones to discuss their priorities, their agency priorities. We also got some feedback during the meeting, and that led to the development of the solutions area highlighted in pink. A few key areas that we received input on is the important connections north of the American River. They felt like the original map there did not really capture that, so we expanded it. There's also a lot of interest in parallel roadway capacity, parallel roadway, supporting the corridor in Sacramento County. That would include Fair Oaks Boulevard and White Rock Road. And then generally some methodological updates, pairing it with census block groups for analytical purposes. Is there? I'm sorry.
What are the gold areas outside the pink area?
Would those be? Yeah, I think those would be, that's a great question. I believe natural areas. Yeah, like parks and. Yeah, great question. Thank you. The gold line, yeah, the gold line should be with oh. Yeah, no, thank you. No, that's a good point. I will make sure we're not having any additional colors in the next.
Director Havisheld, are you talking about the chunks that look like they could be green or gold? Yeah, those are parks. Yes, those are parks. Yeah, yeah.
This is a good warm up for the SACOG pub quiz night, by the way.
I appreciate that. We care a lot about, visual imagery, so.
Conservation or refuge areas or. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I think thank you. And I think, legend update, makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate that. And then the broader study area here, as you can see, it's based on travel flows on US 50. We took origin and destination data where people start and end their trips, and use that to really, paint this broader area where we're going to study the impacts of the ultimate project improvements, right? So as you can see, right, the Sacramento International Airport and Davis, they're included in the study area because a lot of trips through 50 end or start there. And then as you can see further to the east, right, it shows really the importance of US 50 to travel, in kind of the further east parts of El Dorado County, right? It's a key travel facility for those folks. Again, these are built on census block group geographies, so they tend to get much larger in rural areas. So now really just a look ahead to the policy framework on the plan, and get us set up for that. And we'll be bringing it back to the Transportation Committee to discuss at an upcoming meeting. So just a preview of what policy frameworks look like, right? It's a vision statement that captures the collective outcome of the CMCP that we want to create in the future, right? And then it's tied to goals and objectives that have broad and achievable outcomes and actions that we can use to achieve those goals, right? So we'll be discussing those top two areas in an upcoming Transportation Committee meeting, and that will lead to the development of performance measures, right? So that we can analyze those projects based on those key goals. So we're trying to do a lot of work here, policy framework inputs to really give you a good sense of the challenges along the corridor and the improvements and opportunities that we have for the region. We're developing an existing conditions memo you know, as a part of those maps, really detailing all those insights we've gained about the region and our area. We're going to be doing some public engagements and some outreach in this next month. Very exciting. We're going to have an online survey going out next week to really get a sense of the public's challenges as they travel the corridor. We're also going to have the TAC. We're going to give them an opportunity to review and comment on the policy framework. And from there, present that to the board. Here it shows as April. You know, that may or may not happen based on today's meeting. And that all those details together will combine for our ultimate policy framework. Okay, so here we are. We're the star, the left of your screen here. Again, we'll be coming back for policy framework input, and then generally we'll have a quarterly cadence when we bring updates on the project to you. Performance measures, very important key detail following that in the summer, and then modeling results, really understanding, you know, what are the impacts across the region, and then a project list in the winter, and then finally draft and final plan spring 2026, board approval in June 2026, and then SB1 Solutions for Congested Corridors program will be shortly after that, so it should line up nicely with that program. With that, the last few remaining moments we have here, any questions or discussion?
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do we have any director questions, comments? I didn't receive anything for public comment, so I just want to thank you for your presentation. And I believe that we will be postponing item 9 to our future meeting, maybe April 3rd. And we do have some other matters to speak of. Go ahead.
Yeah, just
Christina.
really quickly, just a reminder that at the board meeting this month in Rockland, there's a bus tour that's going to be hosted by Vice Chair Gallardo. That starts at 8:30, so hopefully you can all attend that. And then today at lunch at 12 o'clock, we have a mobility zones presentation, which should be very informative. So we hope that you can join us for both of those. That's it.
Thank you. This meeting will be adjourned at 6 minutes to 12, and see you on the 3rd of April for transportation, and hopefully you'll stay for lunch. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Christina, and lovely to see some of Transportation Committee and other folks who are tuning in for Lunar this afternoon. As Christina mentioned, I'm Kathleen Hanley. I'm a planner on the transportation team here at SACOG, and one of our major projects on the transportation team right now is mobility zones. So as the team queues up my slides here, I'll just remind folks that back in January, when staff brought before you the 2025 work plan for SACOG, provided the note that each major program is going to get a lunch. So you'll get a deep dive into each of SACOG's major programs, a good reminder for our longstanding board members, and a nice training for some of the new folks that we've brought on in 2025. And I am the first of the many deep dives that you'll be getting this year. Just waiting on, yeah, we'll just give ops team a minute. All good. Perfect. So today my presentation agenda is really to just give you an overview of the Mobility Zones program. It's pretty complicated, but I'm going to walk you through it at a high level and happy to dive deep on anything you have real interest or questions on. So my presentation is going to focus on the why. Why did we make this program? Why has SACOG expanded the transportation team's work into Mobility Zones? I'll talk about the what, how Mobility Zones is structured and what its scope is, what we're trying to do with some of the federal funding that we got for this project. The how, which is really kind of a recap of some of the board items that I brought forward in 2024 on Mobility Zones, how we've been inching our way towards figuring out which parts of the region we want to focus on, and then a bit of a look ahead with the now what on what you can expect from me through the remainder of 2025 with my board items. So starting with the why and the project purpose, why did we make Mobility Zones? As SACOG was working through 2020 and 2021, we discovered a couple of kind of key problems. The first is that government doesn't always have the right solution, right? We heard a lot in our equity work that communities often have a solution to our issues, and we have this big disconnect between what communities are saying their issues are and what kinds of solutions government is trying to put out to get there. Another problem we saw is that it's really hard to be effective at the 10,000 foot level if you don't know what's happening on the ground. There's a lot of advantages to the regional policy and prioritizing work that SACOG does, but we're even more effective at what we do when we partner with our cities and our counties on their projects, so we understand how big picture regional policy decisions impact actual projects on the ground. And then there are a lot of inequities that vary really dramatically across our region, and state and federal tools don't do a good job of capturing that. A lot of the kind of standard equity maps that the state and federal governments put out don't do a good job of showing the different needs that we have in our region. So we wanted to look at kind of what tools could we create to better measure equity. Taking each of these problems one by one and talking about how they fed into the scope of Mobility Zones. So on the piece of government not having the right solution all the time, Mobility Zones was scoped to center community voices at every step. And we also designed Mobility Zones as a pilot. So we really want to reflect and learn and see what we can learn from this process of Mobility Zones to put into what SACOG does in its transportation programs. I'll flag that Mobility Zones is not the only major project at SACOG that is doing this kind of work. The Engage, Empower, Implement program, or EEI, which we'll get another lunch program on, is also solving the same problem. On the issue of it's hard to be effective at the 10,000 foot level if you don't know what's happening on the ground, Mobility Zones takes a place-based approach. So while it starts with a 6-county lens, ultimately it focuses in on 10 communities, 10 places, which gives us the ability to work in partnership with local agencies on specific problems in specific communities, instead of always having to generalize across such diverse places and diverse regions. That place-based approach is the same type of approach that Green Means Go, our housing accelerator program, uses, which you'll also get a lunchtime presentation on later this year. And on the last piece about how inequities vary across our region and it's hard to measure them, part of the Mobility Zone scope includes developing a real bottoms-up way of mapping equity. That's the action that the board took in December that folks may recall. And that tool that we created in Mobility Zones really honors the differences between our counties and communities. It doesn't force us to create an average that helps everybody a little bit and nobody all the way, right? We're able to sort of ebb and flow with the different equity needs in our region and bring them all together in an equity map. Another one of our major projects here at SACOG, the Regional Monitoring Report, also does a really good job of mapping equity in the region and being transparent about data. So just trying to make those connections for you all between mobility zones and some of the other major projects that we have at SACOG. Okay, the what? What is mobility zones? You understand why we do it. We want to center community voices. We want to work with a place-based approach, and we want to make a tool for equity that works for our region. How Mobility Zones does that with a scope that has two main steps. The first is focused on defining about 10 communities within the 6-county region that we should focus on for the rest of the project. We call those communities or neighborhoods mobility zones. So the whole first phase of work is focused on figuring out which 10 places we should focus on across 6 counties. And then the second phase of work is all about improving travel within those zones with a special focus on non-driving alone travel, right? Looking at what additional options we can provide to folks so they can get places more efficiently and safely. It's more complicated than 2 steps, right? So there's individual pieces within each one, but just to give you a sense of where we are, we're really closing up on the second half of the first major phase. So I'm approaching a board action item in May to approve the 10 places that we're going to focus on for the rest of the project through 2026. In addition to the way the work of the project is structured, Mobility Zones also has this really unique collaboration structure through its committees. So Mobility Zones has stood up quarterly committees. You see on the bottom there, there's 3 types of committees. Community committees, which include local residents and nonprofit organizations, municipal committee, which is your city and county staff, and the technical committee, which is our regional partners, transit operators, air districts, utilities, who are all critical to transportation, right, but aren't a city or a county. And we meet with those committees every quarter. I have a slide here that lists in tiny font, don't squint. I always attach this roster to the staff report when I come before the full board, so you can check it out. But this is just to give you a sense of the volume of folks that we're coordinating with every 3 months on mobility zones. So when items come before their board, they've really been very heavily vetted through this robust process that brings community members and city and county staff together to have a conversation around, like, how do we prioritize things? How do we weigh urban and rural interests in a region as diverse as ours? Yeah, go ahead. I think I got them all, but all of our jurisdictions are on municipal committees, so I will double check that I haven't had any slide omissions on the list here. It would be my pleasure. Oh, yes, they're not alphabetical. That's a good recommendation. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Right, so throughout my presentation, you'll hear me say, we did this, we wrestled with that, we came to this decision. I want to be clear that that we is these committees working together. And really what SACOG staff and our consultants are doing is staffing these committees, is bringing forward decisions and data and pros and cons and having these committees work together to weigh options that turn into the recommendations that we bring before the SACOG committees and board. All right, we have a sense of the scope of mobility zones. This how section is really a recap of where we've come so far on the mobility zones project. Right, as I mentioned in the 2-phase approach, we've really been focused on in this first phase, figuring out which 10 places we should focus on in the 6-county region. Oversimplified, what we've done to figure out those 10 places is figure out what are the areas in our region that have equity needs, what are the areas in our region that have transportation needs, and the places that have both being areas that could be mobility zones. Interesting. Looking at mapping equity needs in particular, I have a feeling my slide transitions are going to be strange here based on that last click. So please bear with me if there's weird slide transitions. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through how we went about mapping each of these needs. So looking first at how we identified areas with equity needs across the 6-county region. So first we took this list of criteria that you see on the left here. These are common kind of demographic indicators that largely the US Census collects related to communities and are usually parts of the equation when we try to figure out what parts of the region have an equity need. What mobility zones did that was unique is instead of weighing all of these equally, or instead of deciding as SACOG staff which ones are more or less important, we went out to the community and we asked, which of these factors is a bigger driver of inequity in your community? And these bar charts show you some of that variation. The one on the left distinguishes between income and race and ethnicity. And on the right, you have cost of living, pollution burden, seniors, youth, disability status, English proficiency, and education, and then each bar chart corresponding to a county. So there's a lot to gain here, right? But I think it reflects some of the tensions that we feel in the region between our differences and how equities are really very widely across all the counties, right? In some places, race and ethnicity and immigration and English proficiency are really the biggest drivers of inequity, where in other communities, it's about income and seniors focused on fixed incomes in the foothills, aging in place in these homes, right? But, and one thing I always take away from this chart is on the right chart, the blue sections on the bottom, that's cost of living. That's everybody's issue, right? So we're really in an acute cost of living and income place in our region right now. And so what we did in mobility zones is taken this information on which counties had which focuses for these different equity indicators. And we used a formula to basically dial up and dial down the factors depending on what we heard from the community was important. So in counties where it said income is more important and cost of living is more important, we weighted those factors more heavily in developing the map. And in counties where it said, you know, seniors or pollution burden is more important, we weighed those factors more heavily. So it puts together a composite equity map at the region level that isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. It lets each county have a slightly different measure of equity depending on its needs. Oh, please, yeah.
Just quick question, is there percentages or like numbers for these bar graphs?
I can provide that in a follow-up.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So cost of living is a tricky thing, right? And I think of burden more than cost of living, because and I think you said it well with foothill communities, right?
Mhm.
You know, and let's take Loomis and Newcastle or Sheridan and Lincoln, right? I don't know the lens to understand the cost of living, what the respondents are responding to. Can you help me better understand that?
I can. And so one of the great challenges of mobility zones is bringing together quantitative analysis and qualitative partnership with community, right? Which is the sort of core tension you're locking in on with cost of living. Quantitatively speaking, we measured cost of living as the combined housing and transportation cost relative to your income. So how much of your income are you spending on housing and transportation? But I didn't say that when I went out to the community because it's a really wonky thing. So what you see here in these bar charts aren't necessarily folks responding to a map or a formula. It's a values, right? It's when I think about needs in my community, what do I think about as our challenges? And so folks are responding to the phrase cost of living. They're responding to the idea that cost of living is important to their community. And then we meet that feedback from the community on their values up with our quantitative formula to measure it to build the map. So these are a couple of the areas that this composite map identified as having high equity need. The first on the left is the sort of Fruit Ridge Pocket, Lemon Hill area in South Sacramento. I think this is a great example that our mobility zones map picks up a lot of the places that are picked up in other maps, right? This is a place of historic, very, very big equity challenges that have existed for a long time in Sacramento County that you can measure by almost any metric, right? And this map picks that up as well. But it also picks up some places in the region that have tremendous equity challenges that don't always appear in other maps, like Linda and Olivehurst in the Yuba County side, and Pony Express and Pollock Pines, which are farther up the US 50 corridor in El Dorado. Sometimes when the state averages things by the state, some of the needs in our foothills communities don't always appear. But the mobility zones map does a good job of capturing both, right? We're capturing need within our urban communities, our sort of suburban small city communities, and our rural contexts. Okay, so yeah, interesting. So we gave you a sense of how we're measuring equity needs as the sort of first piece of the equation here. Looking at mapping transportation needs as the next step in the formula that we talked about. Using a similar process, we started with a list of criteria. So on the left here, these are umbrella criteria of ways you can think about transportation need from a multimodal perspective. High transit dependency, limited transit access, access to community resources, like how easy is it for you to get to your local library, for example. High pollution burden, lack of safety, lack of multimodal infrastructure, do you have sidewalks, do you have bike lanes, and poor road quality. And as we were working through this list of criteria, one of the challenges that we found is that the different ways that you measure it those ways of measuring it are stronger in some parts of our region and not as strong in others. So what we developed is actual sub-criteria that help to cover those gaps. So these are basically different ways of skinning the cat of each of the criteria to say, right? So if we take the top one of high transit dependency, the first sub-criteria is the percent of households with more workers than vehicles. That's a great indicator of someone who might be dependent on transit, right? If two people have to get to work and there's only one car, chances are, at least on some occasions, that household is relying on transit. And we can also look at places that have a lot of trips on transit, right? So sort of a supply side transit issue and a demand side transit issue. And so this list, I'm not going to walk through every one, but it gives you a sense that we use sort of different ways of measuring the same kind of problem to make sure that we were comprehensive across the region. But you'll also notice that they're nestled under larger criteria, and that prevents double counting. So as you imagine, under high transit dependency, the places that have a lot of households with vehicle worker mismatch, as we say, and the places with a lot of transit trips are often the same place. So this methodology kind of takes out that double counting and makes sure that we're being fair across the region. So that's how the measure of transportation need works. Here's a couple of areas that were identified using this process as having high transportation need. So we see the Sunrise Boulevard corridor, which goes down sort of Fair Oaks, Carmichael across the river into Sacramento County, right? A place with a lot of congestion, a lot of truck traffic, poor pavement quality, large blocks that make it hard to walk around, but not necessarily an area that we always talk about. On the more rural side, we have Colfax, Meadow Vista, Forest Hill. This measure of transportation need is really about a lack of access to things. There's not great transit service up here. There's not great bike or sidewalk access. It's really rural communities up in the foothills that don't have good connections. And so our way of measuring transportation need is picking all that up. And then on the more urban side, right, we have the Yolo Causeway and all the challenges from congestion and truck travel and air pollution that come from these sort of transportation need on this area we've been focusing on a lot in the region in recent. So that's how transportation need is measured in this process. And so just to recap, right, we talked about how we're mapping equity needs, talked about how we're mapping areas with transportation needs and opportunities. Then I have to click through weird again. Yeah. Okay. So then, right, what we did is stack those two things on top of each other. And then the areas that could be mobility zones are the places that have both. Now, I've oversimplified this a little bit so that we can explain the process, right? But in that areas that have both, we did a lot of qualitative work to make sure it was right? Like, is this a place where there's no people in jobs and it's just picking up from a weird census error? That happens sometimes. So we did a lot of work with your jurisdictions and with the community partners to make sure that the areas that we identified as potential mobility zones like made sense and were places that folks do really see equity and transportation needs happening. So the now what? Where is this project headed and what can you expect from me in the coming months? Looking at a 2025 board timeline, this is a refresher for folks who came to the February lunch, but we're here today at March with a lunch presentation for me on kind of a Mobility Zones 101. We'll be back in April with an information item showing you that draft list of the 10 places that were created, right? So when we stacked equity on top of transportation and figured out where it overlapped, the phase 1 10 places from that list we'll be bringing forward for you all to provide feedback on in April. And then in May, we'll be looking for a board action to officially designate 10 places as phase 1 of this project for us to focus on. Once those 10 places are designated, then I'll take a little break from the board during the summer to do some work in those places, understand needs, start to do outreach on project ideas to solve some of those needs in each of those 10 places. And we'll come back with some information items through the fall to keep you all up to speed on how that's progressing. The hope is to end the year with a prioritized list of projects to move forward for mobility zones. I also want to flag for folks that we've been doing a lot of community engagement across the region, going to other boards and also doing, as pictured here, some in-person engagement with folks, getting community members around a map of these 10 places we've identified and having them reach out to us and explain, you know, put stickers and talk about where they have potholes, where there's hard crosswalks, all of those issues so that we can bring them into the project. So you may be seeing that in your bulletin boards and across other newsletters in your community. So just wanted to be transparent with you all about that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions or return back to anything.
I think it was a December board meeting. You showed a mobility map. I'm trying to remember the names, but there are dependent? No, that's not right. What's the Galleria?
Yeah, so right, today we've talked about an equity needs map and a transportation needs map. Actually, in the equity needs map, there's two types of equity needs places, which is what Director Howdeschelt is remembering. There's home-based, and destination-based. And so the equity needs analysis accounts for the fact that job centers are also really important to our equity priority communities, and that the census isn't as good at picking up the needs of job centers. So basically what we did is we took the places where the low income communities and the communities of color in our region are, and then used actual travel data to say, okay, if folks live in, let's say, Fruit Ridge Pocket, where do those folks travel to? And then we also designated the places where those folks travel to as equity priority areas because they're job centers or where they grocery shop, other really important places. And so the Roseville Galleria is an example of a destination-based equity area because a lot of the equity priority communities in Citrus Heights and North Highlands have jobs at the Roseville Galleria. And so it's a real hub for jobs.
So would you create one of these zones that's a combination, crosses jurisdictional boundaries?
Yes, most of the zones cross jurisdictional boundaries.
But when you pick the 10?
Yes.
Okay. And then, my apologies, I was super focused on, so that second, the equity aspect of it, I think, you had pavement condition
On the
index?
transportation side.
Transportation side. Well, I guess this applies to each of them. Is each of those elements equally weighted or is, is it equally weighted in each of those criteria?
If you'll remember in that blue table, that was actually, if you, it's slide, let's see here. It's slide 22. Yeah, perfect. So on the left, the umbrella criteria, as I call them, each of those is equally weighted. And then on the right, the sub-criteria, it's sort of, you need to meet at least one sub-criteria to get the point for the criteria. So if you're a place that has a high percentage of households with more workers than vehicles and a lot of transit trips, you don't get 2 points, you just get 1. So there are ways of measure, the right column is ways of measuring the left column, and all the rows on the left column are weighted equally.
So poor road quality only has one criteria.
But it has the same points as transit, even though it only has one sub-criteria.
And Director Corliss was at the Senate and Assembly Transportation Committee on Monday. And I believe it was the executive director of the California Transportation Commission. No, it was not. It was the consultant for NEC who showed pavement conditions in some pretty, well, I'll remember the words exactly. He said, you see that pavement? That house is $2 million. So I'm trying to, maybe I need to go away and come back and think about it, but you could end up, why I'm asking about weighting is you could end up with that pavement condition elevating a community that is not necessarily, doesn't necessarily have equity issues.
It's a great point. And so
Thanks for complimenting me while you tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to tell you you're right. And there's a couple ways we address that exact concern. One is that, right, transportation need is not the only way that we're getting towards a mobility zone. It has to be located in the same place that has equity needs so we can address that type of issue. And then the other piece, exactly, the stacking. And then the other piece is that really in order for a place to be considered as having transportation need, it needs to meet multiple of these, right? So just if a place is just transit dependent, it doesn't have any of the other problems, it's not gonna rise to the 10 places in our 6 counties. So the places we're moving towards focusing on have, 4 or 5 of these boxes ticked.
If I put a marble at the top of the slices, right? It
Mhm.
will, okay.
Drop down, yep.
I'm a slow
Exactly.
learner, but I'm not a
Oh, you're asking great
recalcitrant
questions.
learner, okay?
Please.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
So I know our town hasn't had a updated pavement index in a long time, which is one of the things that I'm looking forward to for my jurisdiction, because that's really one of the almost number one problem going on in our town. So how can you quantify that if it's dated data?
We didn't run a analysis to see how old the data was. In general, pavement conditions been bad in our region for quite some time. So I imagine that even your old pavement report is probably showing a lot of issues in that community. One of the tenets we had is to make sure that the data sets we were using, we had available for every single jurisdiction in our region, right? Some jurisdictions have had the funding to develop newer or better or more detailed data. And we only wanted to use things that could apply to everybody. So part of the challenge is that some of the stuff is outdated. And there's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. While it isn't lined up well in terms of timing for this, we do recognize that that's a huge issue. And so as part of our funding round, the federal piece, we have some priority programs, one of which is specifically related to pavement, to specifically look at how we can sort of make sure that the playing field is leveled and everybody has the same level of information and up-to-date information on pavement conditions to help us be able to inform future maintenance for our road decisions and funding, both at SACOG and elsewhere. So it is an issue. Unfortunately, it doesn't really help with this process, but in the future, since this is not a one-time only thing that we're doing, and we'll be taking elements of this program forward in various ways, it is something we could maybe line up more that would be helpful.
And then one more question on that slide where you had the different colors and you were going to provide us, I think, with some percentages, which I think would be great. Did you do that for all the municipalities also, or did you just generally do them like that?
We just generally did them by county. When we took the survey data in, I believe we asked for zip code. So I might be able to break it out by zip codes, some of which are tied to municipalities and others aren't. So I'll get it as fine grained as I can.
Yeah, which again, we have a small town and half of us, well, it's all one zip code, but half is municipality and half is in the county.
I completely agree. I think one of the challenges I've faced with outreach is that folks have a sensitivity around privacy, particularly on answering questions about values and equity. So I wanted to balance the desire to be able to break things out with making folks feel comfortable that we were taking data at a generalized enough level that we couldn't really identify them, of course.
Well, thank you. It was a great presentation. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I was thinking a lot about Bruce's question. I had like the opposite, which I think it's gonna maybe be the same answer, but I'm not sure. Take an area like West Sac where the causeway is. I believe that area has the highest EnviroScreen like pollution index out of like the region. Would they just get 1 point for that for the Cal EnviroScreen? And even though it's like the worst?
That's right. Using this methodology, they would just get 1 point. And so I think what's important is we designed this process to get us to pick 10 places across 6 counties. And it's a cool tool that does a lot of things different, I think, particularly on the equity side, but it's not perfect, right? So it's best to be used with the other tools that are available. So for some communities where Cal EnviroScreen does a really good job of measuring their need, then just use Cal EnviroScreen, right? But there are parts of our region that aren't getting their needs measured well. And so this tool offers an option for them outside of the use of mobility zones. Other questions? Well, thank you. Well, thank you. I really appreciate the time and you all having me for lunch today to dig in. Yeah, go ahead. That's right. That's right. For your Friday night pleasure, Director Howdeshell. Yeah. And but we always, right, when we bring an item to SACOG, we start at the beginning. So no pressure if a month from now or 2 months from now, when I come back with an action, I'll start back over, right? Maybe not in this level of detail, but remind us of the stacking of the equity and the transportation, how we all work together with the jurisdiction. So truly no pressure to memorize everything from today, but it's great to be able to dig in deep with you all on mobility
Since
zones.
it's recorded, the broader audience will see it, but I shared with Christina, and I may have shared with you, but I watched the Policy and Innovation Committee and Jason Pavlichuk do his presentation, and then Chris Lee from Politico do their presentation. Really super informative, but it unveiled some things that are coming down the pike, like the interagency transit task force, some deadlines, reauthorization. So it's just, thank you for hosting these types of things. And it's usually Saturday morning before the coffee fully kicks in.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you all so much.